A lot of new developments tonight in the Christmas airline bombing attempt. President Obama got briefed at the White House today by John Brennan, his Homeland Security assistant. He's going to get a full report tomorrow on what went wrong. Meantime, there is new fallout tonight. Take a look at this map. 14 nations that the TSA is now calling countries of interest. We're talking about Afghanistan, Syria, Saudi Arabia, just to name a couple of them. Starting today, there's going to be extra, tougher screening for all air travelers going from those 14 countries to the United States. Now, also on that list, Nigeria, where this man, the alleged Christmas bomber, is from, and also the country of Yemen, where he reportedly hooked up with al-Qaeda and where the plot was hatched. Umar Farouk Abdul-Muttalib is a rich kid. We know that, and as you're going to see, he traveled widely. Frequent flyer miles are not, of course, in and of themselves suspicious, but authorities right now are retracing his steps to try to see if they served as waypoints on the road to terror. I want to walk you through some of the key stops. One new surprise, this Nigerian's fascination with extreme Islam may actually go back farther than we first believed. Take a look. We know the story for us begins in Togo. That's where he went to high school. Back in 2001, he was in Togo, West Africa. This is what he looked like. That's actually his high school picture from the British International School. He was said to be well-liked, but after 9/11, one teacher said he did hold extremist views. The teacher believed, though, it was just a phase. All right, so then we skip ahead to Yemen. 3 years later, where the Nigerian was studying Arabic at the Sana Institute for the Arabic Language. Then the story moves to 2005 to London when he was at the University College of London. Abdul-Muttalib is a president of the College Islamic Society, and he invites radicals to lecture on jihad. And that is where this man comes into the picture. While he was in London, the Nigerian, apparently, according to U.S. officials, say he was likely had contact with this cleric, Anwar al-Awlaki, a supporter of violent jihad who was targeted by airstrikes in Yemen just last month. Now, Awlaki, you may remember, exchanged emails with this man, Major Nidal Hassan, the accused Fort Hood gunman. So he has a big story to tell on his own. Now, after graduation in 2008, we know that Muttalib went to Houston. He entered the U.S. on a 2-year multiple entry visa. Then, just 6 months later, he shows up in Dubai, where he starts a graduate business degree. But get this, he drops out after only a month. And then, significantly, in May, he tried and failed to go back to London. His student visa, though, was turned down because the school he said he was attending in London doesn't even exist. So that is incredibly suspicious. His name was then put on an immigration watch list. Then, on August 4th, he goes back to Yemen, supposedly to study Arabic again. But get this, the man who runs the school says he didn't need more training. He was an expert speaker in Arabic already. And it's during this time in Yemen that he allegedly got al-Qaeda training. So this is what President Obama said about it over the weekend.
It appears that he joined an affiliate of al-Qaeda, and that this group, al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, trained him, equipped him with those explosives, and directed him to attack that plane headed for America.
But we now know that didn't have to happen. In Nigeria, November 19th, Abdul-Muttalib's father, this man, goes to the U.S. Embassy, warns that his son had fallen under the influence of extremists. The warning was passed on to Washington. The Nigerian was put on a watch list, but he was not put on the no-fly list. And amazingly, his visa to the United States was not revoked, so he was still free to travel to the United States. So then he goes on the 16th of December, travels to Ghana, buys a one-way ticket to Detroit with cash, boards a flight in Amsterdam, and on Christmas Day, he sits down in seat 19A above the fuel tank on Northwest Delta Flight 253, bound for Detroit. And that is where the story ends. Digging deeper now, especially into the Yemen connection with national security analyst Peter Bergen. He's one of the few Westerners who've been face-to-face with Osama bin Laden. Also, senior international correspondent Nick Roberts. And Nick, the U.S. just closed its embassy in Yemen, just announced today that it's going to reopen tomorrow. Is it clear how much control or power al-Qaeda actually has in Yemen?
Well, they've had a growing presence and a growing control and influence over some parts of the country. If you go back to 2000, the attack on the USS Cole, al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, as it's known now, formed at the beginning of last year, a grouping of al-Qaeda elements in Saudi Arabia and in Yemen. They've had attacks against Westerners over the past couple of years, attacks against embassies there in the past couple of years. They've taken advantage of a weak weak government that's fighting Shiite rebels in the north, that's fighting an insurgency in the south of the country, and doing what al-Qaeda has done in Afghanistan and Pakistan, which is taking advantage of these sort of semi-autonomous tribal regions, so that the space they've operated, the number of people they've got there, the organization they've got there, is something that's been built over the past decade to what it is today, and it is significant.
So,
Anderson.
Peter, the group in Yemen is called Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Does that, I mean, is it kind of an offshoot of Al-Qaeda Central of Osama bin Laden and Zawahiri?
I think it's very embedded with Al-Qaeda Central, because Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula is basically made up of, it's a Saudi group that happens to, because of the enormous pressure that they're under in Saudi Arabia, is rebase itself largely in Yemen. The fact that they are now operating in an Al-Qaeda Central manner, in the sense of trying to bring down American airlines, is not a coincidence. I mean, they're following commander's intent from Osama bin Laden to attack the West, and they don't need to get a direct order. They know that that's the mission statement of this organization. And
so General Petraeus goes to Yemen this weekend to meet with officials there. And Peter, you say the U.S. was sending a message by sending Petraeus, not somebody like the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Absolutely. I mean, this is in General Petraeus' area of operations. CENTCOM has control of this area. He's a four-star general. The message is pretty obvious that we are planning military operations. The president has said we're going to respond, hold people accountable on the weekend. He didn't come bringing a thank you note for your help in the war on terror. He came, I think, bringing something of a warning that we are going to follow through, and we're either going to do it with your cooperation or without. And I think President Saleh understands that cooperating with the United States in this instance actually makes a lot of sense. And we've already seen some of that on December 17th and December 24th with operations by the Yemenis, certainly with U.S. help. So I think we can expect to see more of those operations in the coming days or weeks, Anderson.
And Nick, you actually spoke with some people that knew this Nigerian suspect, Abdul Muttalib, from the University of London. What did they have to say about him?
Well, they said that they were surprised and shocked about the allegations against him, and they didn't recognize these traits about him. But the reality is that people joining the Islamic Society at universities, particularly in London, during the period he was there, and he became the president of his society on his second year there, were entering a very politically and religiously and emotionally charged environment where, according to former Islamic Society members, extremist views were expounded upon, were debated, were talked about. I mean, this is he's not the first Islamic Society president that's gone along and got involved in a terror plot. There have been 3 previous Islamic Society presidents. One of them got involved in the liquid explosives airlines plot back in 2006. So there's a track record here of being exposed to these extremist views. Although his friends around him say they don't recognize that, that's the reality. An independent think tank report back in 2008 said that members of these societies, while most of them were tolerant, there was a significant proportion, a significant minority that supported attacks, violent attacks, in the name of Islam. That's what he was exposed to.
Yeah, a lot of red flags raised, even his own dad coming forward to U.S. officials. But again, the message not getting to the right people and him not getting his name on the right list. Peter Bergen, Nick Robertson, appreciate it tonight. Thank you. As always,